Hi, everyone. We are back. Just a couple minutes late. We were doing some technical stuff trying to make everything work. So I'm going to bring Alexis in here.
Hi.
She is with Sizzix, and I'm just going to turn it right over to her, and she can share. And Alexis, just tell me if I need to when I need to turn it down.
Okay, I'll
Okay,
give you a heads up when to switch the overhead.
perfect.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexis. I'm with Sizzix. If you were with us in the fall, you saw me here talking about our stencil and stamp tool, the registration press tool that is with our Sizzix studio. And so I thought today would be fun to kind of show you our stamp and spin, which goes with the tool and is just another great feature to kind of make all different types of makes. So I'll just show the product real quick. So this is our stencil and stamp tool. It came out a couple years ago now, but we also have a Sizzix Studio version called the registration press tool. It's the exact same tool, just different colors. One is geared more towards like fine art, mixed media, and this one's geared more towards crafting as far as colors go. But we will go through the tool, but I wanted today to go through the accessory piece called the stamp and spin. And it looks a little something like this.
Oh,
And
cool.
basically what this allows you to do is to create wreaths and patterns. So I'm going to do like a demo. I've got lots of project samples to show you. Basically just ask any questions that you might have, because we've got lots of content to kind of show you how to use it, but there's always new ways people are coming up with things. You can use anybody's stamps, you can use anybody's stencils. We have converter strips for all that. So we'll switch the overhead and we'll start going through kind of like a demo of how to use the tool. So I cannot get it closer, so I'm going to hold it up to the camera just so you have a good idea. And sorry for the overhead reflection. There is a light directly above me. But this is our stamp and spin. And right here, you'll see that it's divided up into little pie shapes, essentially. And it's a wheel that spins around. You can feel it really firmly click into place. But what it allows you to do is to create wreath patterns. So something as simple as this, obviously this is a much larger scale, we'll say, but you can make them into smaller ones. We just wanted to give people the ability to create things that were large in scale or small in scale. You can really create like very
Wow.
detailed coloring pages if you wanted to, but you can also just do simple shapes where you just repeat a shape. So I'm going to walk you through just how to create a simple wreath. We'll start with our basics basically, and then I'll show you how you would create a pattern effect. So how this works is I always work this way. It's just the way I work, but you can work this direction. You can also work this direction. That's the beauty of this tool. If you're left-handed, right-handed, it'll be your bestie. But you won't need this lid. This lid is great for like just stamping as you want, large scale stamps, anything of that nature. And then this is the stencil adapter. And what this does is it connects to our stencils, but we also have these converter strips. So then anybody's stencils will fit on the tool. And then this sits in here. You can decide where you want your stencil to go. So that's kind of just a little glimpse into what this part of the tool is. Figure it's good to show you what comes with it. Then underneath here is the A4 sticky grid sheet, and this allows you to kind of hold your project in place so it doesn't move around while you're working with the tool, and gives you that nice, perfect registration every time you need it. Up here is the hinge on the platform, and that's where your stamp and spin is going to fit in. It fits in on the hinge, and what this does is it allows you to then stamp multiple times in a row, getting that perfect registration before you move to the next section that you're working on. So I'm going to just we've got lots of stamps in Sizzix that work great with this tool, botanicals, fruits, things of that nature. But then 49 and Market also came out with these are really fun, these Build-A-Bursts. So these also work with the tool. They were designed to work within the pie pieces. That's what I call them. So I'm just going to grab, this is like my favorite set. It's the Botanical, what is this one called? It's newer. Wildflower Botanicals. So I'm just going to grab one of my kind of smaller stamps. And what you're going to do is when you're creating a wreath, you're going to work within the pie shapes. So I'm trying to avoid that glare overhead.
No, you're
Sorry.
good.
So in the pie shape, you'll see there's sections. And those sections are kind of to help you figure out where you're going to place your stamp. So you don't want your stamp to go over the line, because as you then rotate around the wheel, you'll get overlap on the stamps. Now, if you want that, totally fine. But if you don't, you want to make sure that you're placing your stamp within those two lines. So I'm going to place mine close because I want a relatively small wreath. I don't want, the further out you go on the wheel, the larger the wreath is in scale. So if you want a smaller wreath, then you're going to move closer to this center area. I tend to use this kind of aqua piece in the middle as my way of kind of leaving room for a sentiment, if you will. But the closer you get to here, the closer it's going to appear. And this is really important when we come to the patterns. You're going to work in a different quadrant, but you want to get it as close to this centerpiece as possible. Whereas this, you want to leave that room if you want a sentiment in the center. So we're just going to put that on our tool. And then I'm just going to grab some ink. You can use, obviously, any ink you want. I prefer to like color my pieces in. So I like to use like a black archival ink so it's permanent and I can color, or use like light gray, things like that. So you're going to take that and just lightly push. And what I do is I pull it back and I see, okay, do I need to stamp it again? Because before you move on to the next section, you want to make sure that your image is perfect. There's just enough wiggle in this in between sections. You're going to feel it click into place. And then there's just a slight wiggle in here. So you can double stamp if you tried to go all the way back around. So I always tell everyone, start and finish in the same section and then move on to the next. That way you can guarantee you're not going to have that double stamping. Now, the reason I work this direction is because then it's easier for me to remember which direction to actually move the wheel. So I always pull it towards me. That way I know I'm rotating in the direction I want to. So I just moved it one click. When you're doing a wreath, you're doing one click and you're going to do it 8 times to get the totality of the wreath. Now, it's fun to get the first 2 down, because people often ask me, well, if I want to do a wreath that's like this, where it's got multiple shapes, there's a big pieces, small pieces. What I like to tell people is start with your biggest shape, get that placed, and then you can actually go in on the white space. So let's say I had stamped this orange first. Then I'd be able to go back in and lay down the stamps for the smaller pieces, and then I could do those all at the same time. So you can save yourself time. I prefer to do it like one shape at a time, especially when you're first starting off, get comfortable with the tool. It's not something where you need to rush it. And it's a really intuitive tool. So once you start using it, it's really easy to kind of understand it. So I just rotated that one time, and you'll see I'm not really having to push very hard. And I just rotate one time. So it's going to keep going around. So I'll do one more, because I feel like this is pretty straightforward on how to create a wreath. Now, if I wanted to get another piece in there, this is like the perfect time to do that. I would take one of my smaller stamps, and let's say I wanted to like fill in and some smaller shapes. What I can do is add them in. And then every time I rotate one time, I know that it's going to have that perfect placement each time. So I don't have to worry about it interfering with what I've already done. So I'm going to rotate this towards me once, and I'm just going to ink all of it at once. And this is essentially double acrylic stacked, so it really lends itself to giving you that perfect stamp. So you can see now I've added those additional shapes in. So now as I go around, I'm going to have those additional shapes that fill out the wreath. And then once you get back to this one being stamped, you would just pull that stamp off and you can finish the rotation. You can also, I'll do one other kind of to show you that, and then we'll move on to the pattern making, because I know we don't have a ton of time, so I want to make sure I cover it. What you can also do, let me pull these off, is you can actually do multiple wreaths at the same time. So to get, let me find my perfect sample for this one. Here we go. So to get something like this where I stamped both of these simultaneously, what I did was I placed the stamp within these sections, and then that way I'm like, okay, this stamp's going to go here, this stamp will go out here, and then I knew they wouldn't overlap. So you can do multiple stamps within a section like this, and then know that each time it stamps around, you've got multiple wreath patterns that you have going at the same time. So we did these particular stamps right here, which kind of arced with these pie shapes and then the sections in each pie shape. So we knew that as we laid them down, they would create those perfect kind of concentric circles. Now,
Amazing.
to do patterns, it's essentially the same idea. I'm going to pull these off so I can reset it for that. I'm just going to peel my paper off. This is something that you don't have to keep on your tool at all times. I take it on and off and store it if I don't need it. But once it's on there, you can just kind of, you can see it's really easy to put in place. Let me grab another little piece of paper real quick. And I'll show you how you can create patterns. Do we have any questions or comments yet?
We have lots of comments. I highlighted a few. One was, Alexis, you have gorgeous hair.
Oh, thank you.
I just thought that would make your day. And Brenda says, my want list is growing.
Oh, awesome.
And Laura Lee says, genius design.
It truly is a tool that I use every day. And I spent a week straight on this recently, just playing with it. And I'm going to show you a lot of project ideas. It's not something where I like, I don't have to say if I love something or not, but it is genuinely something I love. Right. So it's fun to play with too, because I've been playing on it for a year now and I still am coming up with new ideas. Yeah, but in order to get the pattern, I don't know if this will really show up on camera as well, but you have your pie shapes. So you have 8s. There's 8 pie shapes in here total. Then there's these hash marks, which those are a little bit harder. I'm going to pull it up a little bit closer.
You can see them
right there. There's these little hash marks. Those help you find the quadrants so that you work in quarters. So that's the difference between a wreath and the pattern, is that for the wreaths, you work in 8s, and for the pattern, you work in quarters. So instead of there being 8 shapes, now you're down to 4 shapes. So what you're going to do is I'm going to do like a smaller scale stamp for this, just so you can see kind of what it is possible to do with this. But what you want to do is you want to work within the quadrant. I know you can't see my hash marks right there, but there's hash mark.
Yep.
And I'm going to get that stamp on there as close to my center. There's a screw right here in the middle. I want to get that as close to the center as possible, because what you're going to do is you want a tight pattern initially to start your pattern. So I just put the Stamp and Spin back in the hinge, and I'm just going to stamp my first shape. Then you're going to rotate twice. So 2 clicks. That's the other difference. You work in quarters and you click twice to move around. So you're going to, I want to make sure I did that. And then 1, 2. Well, that's a lovely mess. I think we all know that in the crafting world. And 1, 2. So instead of needing to go around the wheel 8 times, you're only having to go around the wheel 4 times. So I've got my initial really tight kind of pattern. Now, in order to create that kind of organic look of an actual pattern, you're going to find the white space. So what I'm going to do, and you don't really have to worry about placement on the wheel after this anymore. Same with the wreaths. You can kind of build on here, because then you know, as long as you're clicking the same rotation each time, it's going to give you the same pattern. So I'm going to stamp this one, click twice, and work my way around just like I did with the first ones. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. And you'll kind of, it depends on how tight you want the pattern. If you want it to be really loose, then you would move the stamp further out. So now that I've gone around the 4 times, now I'm going to find, and you rotate the stamp, you move it around so that it also doesn't look like you just went and stamped circles. Like you want the shape to change. So you're going to do the same thing again, and you just keep building out the pattern, doing the same idea. 1, 2. So really, it's just about that initial placement. And I always tell people that's the learning curve, is just figuring out placement. Because once you figure out placement, and as long as you know your click pattern, we'll say, then you can make anything on here. And this was a happy accident. It wasn't even something we had initially thought to do with this. And Pete Hughes, who's on our design team, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, he was like, you can make patterns with it too. We're like, what? So then he showed us, and we're like, oh, this is amazing. So you can see, as you just keep building it out and changing it up, it's going to create that pattern shape. I've got a couple already done so that I can show you what that actually looks like. So this is a different stamp, but it's kind of similar in scale and size. But you can see that this was my initial 4 right here. And then I just kept going out and out and out. You can go as wide as that's the only limitation with it, is that you can only go as wide as the actual wheel, which I believe is about 8 inches, maybe a little bit less, but I've even had them come off the side a little bit, and I'll just push the stamp down to finish the image myself. But you can go fairly large in scale and then cut it down. I've seen people do this, and then they'll use the scoring board and trimmer and create like a lid for something. But you can create your own patterns, which is really fun, because we always want to make sure that there's versatility and a lot for you guys to create when you're working with something like this. But you can see, you really can truly take things that are organic. I've got a couple in here that are like, you can mix and match different sets. So this is our butterfly set, and then that's mixed with the botanical set. So whatever stamps you have on hand, you can make it work. One other thing that's a cool technique with it is you can, you can create masks. So you'll see right here that I've got this wreath going, but it doesn't go through the actual pear shapes right here. And the reason that is because I stamped the pear shape and cut it out, which this is the only thing that's a little bit time consuming, and it's clearly been used many times for a mask. But what I did is I stamped this first, and then I placed the mask over it, and then I stamped my wreath, so that when I pulled the mask away, it didn't stamp on this, but it still created that full wreath. Same with this one. I stamped it first in the center, placed it around, and then I did the circles around that, or not circles, but I did the wreath shape around that. So that's another fun little technique with it. This is a sample of the Build-A-Burst. So they are built in triangle shapes, and there's 5 different patterns. And so you can fit them into the pie sections and then create these really beautiful kind of geometric or artistic ones rather than like botanicals. You can do this. I know like Catherine Pooler had a couple collections last year that worked perfectly with this. I think it was like the jungle themed one was really great. And so, yeah, there's lots out there. I've got a ton of samples to show you guys. So this is one that Nikki Shearer created where she did the Build-A-Burst and then die cut them out and then put them all in to like the central place. But then she cut off the excess and then made a second card with it. So definitely something that you can do. Like you can make just a circular element and then cut off the edges, and then you end up having 2 cards. This one I thought was really interesting. This is by Annika, who's on our design team. She stamped a wreath and then she added die cuts into it. So you can mix and match die cuts with the stamping to create the wreath, which I thought was fun for like a 3D kind of element. These are those those Build-A-Burst again. So you can kind of see how using the tool really kind of helps you create that repeating pattern and knowing that you're going to get it perfectly in shape and it's going to be similar the whole way around. Sorry, I just realized that was sideways. This one I love. Karen on our design team, she created this one. She did that kind of stamp around with, I think there's 2 different sets of this. There's one that's like a skinny version. I think it has 6 or 7 designs. And then there's this one that has 5 designs. And she then went in and stitched the places where she had stamped. So it created this whole texture feel to it. This is an example of the pattern making. So Chris on our design team, she did this kind of all over pattern and then cut into it and set this sentiment in the center of it. So you can just do a whole pattern and then die cut into the center of it and create your own aperture if you wanted to. I love this one. It's so beautiful. So this is also from Chris. She did that where she cut them out but she had done the initial shape and then went back and die cut them afterwards. Here's a bunch that I created. So let's start with some simple ones. So this is just your basic wreath. And then I went in and watercolored them with Distress inks, which that's probably my favorite medium. Watercolors sometimes leave behind like a residue over the actual stamped image. So I prefer to like have something that's water soluble that doesn't sit on top of the ink. So I find Distress inks, Catherine Pooler's inks work really nicely as well, but they give like a really nice watercolor effect. This is a really cool idea. And I got this. I'm going to show the original concept to you first. I'm all about fast card making. I don't often get to make cards, and when I do, I want something that's really quick. So Annika on our team did this where she stamped one big wreath and then she cut it down into 4 cards. So, and then colored them like in a monochromatic way with colored pencils and added some nice foiling to the center of the flowers. So there's one sheet of paper and then she cut it so that it would create 4 cards, which I think is such a great way to do fast card making. So then I did my own kind of take on that and I did this one. And you can see I just chose each panel to be different colors. So I stamped everything, cut it, and colored it. But before I cut it apart, I colored it. And then that way you can see they kind of, the pink goes into the yellow a little bit. So that's just another way to use this if you want to do quick card making, which I'm always a fan of. Then this one, this was also done as a big circle, and then I just cut it down kind of funky, and it created these two cards. So it looks like that I did like my own stamping, but it was a wreath, and then I just cut the paper down as I wanted to create these cards. So you don't have to keep it in a wreath kind of setting. Same with the idea with this. This is a pattern one where I just cut it down kind of funky. And then where I had excess pieces left over, I just fussy cut them and made mini cards. So no piece wasted. This is another idea. You can do the wreath. Now this is a little bit more tedious in time, but I then ended up hand cutting, fussy cutting the center out. So if you wanted to create dimension, you could do that. And then you've got this kind of window that you've created. You could also turn that into a shaker if you wanted to. I forgot to grab it, but you can do these as home decor as well. So beautiful wreaths, large frames, great for seasonal changes. This is one I love. This is the same wreath. This is one of my favorites that I did. So I did one massive wreath, and then I cut it down to a slim line. And then on the sides, I had all these extra pieces left over, and I didn't want them to go to waste. So I took them and then I layered them to create another card with the excess pieces. So no waste. Same card, same like one piece, and then it created these two massive cards. And it's just about getting those larger patterns, those larger wreaths, and then finding fun ways that you can trim them down in size and scale. This is another one where I just did multiple wreaths, and you can see they kind of all just work perfectly concentric together. And then I just trimmed them down to a smaller, like a mini slimline. I'm really bummed I didn't grab I even packed it today to bring with me to the office. But I did this really beautiful wreath, and then I hand cut all around the outside of the wreath, and I'm going to put it in a beautiful frame, and it's a piece of art for my house now. Nice. So that's my little demo on the Stamp and Spin and what you can do with it for pattern making and wreath making. There's, as you can see, lots and lots and lots of inspiration. It's not a brand new tool, so there is lots of inspiration out there. But if it is new to you, there are tutorials and things that are very user-friendly, I would say. But yeah, I hope
I have some comments.
Questions. I'm like looking at the comments.
No questions, just comments. I'm growing with ideas for decorating jar lids, Karen had said. And then Isabel said that years ago, back in the day, Sizzix had dies for stamping on jar lids, and they would probably work perfectly with the stamping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can, like I said, if you just get it down to that as tight as you can to the center, then you can take your nested circle shapes and die cut them to fit those jar lids as well.
Oh, that'd be perfect too. Such great ideas here. I love the no waste method. I think we all love that idea.
Yes.
Shelley says,
fan of using everything you have.
I know, right? Shelley says these are such cute cards.
Thank you.
Yeah, just all positive comments going on here because, you do such a great job, Alexis. I'm going to bring you back in. And this was wonderful. And I gave you just a little bit extra time because our next presenter is having problems getting in.
I did too. So listen, I am a paper crafter. Tech is not my cup of tea sometimes.
Oh, it was fine. It was just a little technical issue, so,
Yeah.
and that's what happens with lives, so.
It's part of it. And we at the end of the day, we got here. I know that there is a lot of people that work with these, so there's always new ideas coming out. I know Pete Hughes, like I said, on our YouTube page, like he's done a ton of content with this. I saw someone mention Erin Reed, and she's done some amazing things as well. But yeah, it's truly like I make a lot with this because I love it so much.
Well, see, yeah, when you love something, it's easier to use.
Yes.
Yeah. And Laura Lee does say her hair really is stunning, like Aria.
Every video I get those comments. Thank you guys.
I love it because it's so nice to make somebody happy and smile.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah. So Sizzix already, for those of you that may not have been here yesterday, because I know people are working and everybody hasn't seen everything. Everybody's not even in the group yet. But we did the giveaway with Sizzix yesterday, and they were so generous in giving away the entire Eileen Hall collection.
Yeah, I just saw Eileen in the chat. Hi, Eileen.
Yeah, so I mean, that was just wonderful. And they're such a great sponsor, and we appreciate everything you do. And
we're so happy to be a part of it. Thank you for inviting us back.
Of course, always. So we will see you next time.
Yeah, and, absolutely.
Thank you all for joining us. We might be just a couple minutes late with our next session. We'll see how Debbie's coming along, getting inside.
Well, thank you so much.